This VRMA really made me realize that we have a real brand and a real team that's having real impact on people's lives and businesses. And it's freaking awesome.
The thing that struck me the most is how small the industry felt. And I think part of this is because you guys have been building relationships for a long time. So there's just people coming up and thanking you. But every single conversation that I had, people were warm, kind, humble. It honestly felt like a small community, even though it was such a massive event.
It was pretty incredible. You know, one major takeaway too that I noticed is that this industry is definitely maturing. We've just been constantly asking the question, like, how do we make revenue management fun and exciting for this industry?
My goal for this workshop was, okay, I'm going to go against that. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to actually give people a straight up strategy. And I know that there's going to be exceptions, and I know that there's nuances, and I know that if this, then that. But for the most part, if you take these guidelines and implement them right away, we gave people worksheets and we gave them a little quiz and we gave them a lot of resources so they could actually implement it. And I tried to keep it as simple as possible. And I think people really enjoy that.
Yeah, just super happy with how VRMA ended up.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome.
Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.
We just got back from VRMA in Vegas, and we found $4.15 million hidden in hosts' portfolios live at the event. Can't wait to share what we found, common themes that we saw, so that you can implement them into your portfolio before your competition does. Welcome back to Get Paid for Your Pad. This is Kaye Putnam, Head of Marketing, and I am here with both Jasper Ribbers, Head of Revenue Management, and Eric Moeller, CEO. Jasper, what's going on?
What's up, everybody?
All three of us on one show.
Yeah, this is fun.
Love it.
It took me about 30 hours to get back home here in Spain from Vegas. I had a delayed flight. I just missed the train. Anyway, it was a fun ride.
You made it.
I think Jasper's a little jet lagged, so if he's not super sharp today, we will forgive him for that. All right. Eric, do you want to start by sharing how we set up our booth to get us started? And then I'd love to go to Jasper so we can talk about the Turbo Rev Revs that we were doing.
Yeah, well, first off, I think it was awesome to be there as a vendor. You know, I've been going to VRMA for many, many years as an attendee, and also not as an attendee, as someone hanging out just in the hallways talking to people. But this year, you know, being a vendor, I thought was really awesome. Also, our first opportunity to speak at VRMA, which we can get into as well. But it was kind of a last minute team decision to book a table and get out there, book a booth and get out there. And it was awesome. We had our, Kaye, you absolutely crushed it. Like, we were getting a lot of amazing feedback on the designs of the booth, designs of the merch, all that stuff. So yeah, it was awesome. We had one section where we were doing the Turbo Rev Revs, and then we had one section where we were networking, and then also sharing what we found in those Turbo Rev Revs. So yeah, it was awesome. We got to see some really amazing old friends that, you know, we built relationships with throughout the years, and then a lot of new operators, a lot of successful operators. So it was pretty incredible. You know, one major takeaway too that I noticed is that this industry is definitely maturing. You know, there's like a lot of what was just startups, you know, a few years ago, or like industry leaders, and CEOs are moving out of companies and new CEOs are moving in, and new team members are popping up all over the place. So it was just really, really cool to be there. It was awesome to share it with you guys and the team.
Yeah, it was super fun. So the Turbo Rev Revs were our primary offer at the booth, and we basically condensed our full revenue report, like the free revenue audits that we do for hosts, into essentially a 15-minute process. So Jasper and one of our revenue managers, Miles, masterminded this condensed but still very accurate process to identify if there's hidden revenue in your portfolio based on how your pricing and revenue management strategy was set up. So Jasper, can you talk us through what was the experience like talking with all of these hosts? What are some of the common themes that you saw as you were doing these audits for people?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, shout out to our team member, Miles. because I gave him kind of a structure of like what kind of KPIs we wanted to look at and asked him if there was a way to turn it into a report. And I don't know how he did it, but he waved his magical wand and suddenly it would just pop up on Mariano's screen, like with branding, and it just looked awesome. So anyway, these Turbo Rev Revs were super fun. Essentially what we did is we asked ourselves, hey, what are the most important KPIs that we can look at to understand how the health of a portfolio? So forward-looking occupancy, we looked at listings, we looked at minimum night stay settings. So we looked at a total of like 10 factors or so, and then we created a formula that would automatically calculate how much upside we think there is on these portfolios. And because we've been doing so many of these RevRevs over the last year and a half, and also because we know the results that we're getting with our existing clients, and we know what their account looked like when they started with us. So now we started to see, trends, right? Or things are starting to look familiar. It's like, hey, I remember that client. That setup looked exactly like that client. Hey, how much did we increase their revenue, right? So we're starting to really learn that. And yeah, it was pretty awesome to see how much revenue we found and how many people came to our booth to do this RevRev. I would say some takeaways for me is, I think, to Eric's point, the industry is maturing. I remember the first time we went to VRMA, because at VRMA, there's a lot of more traditional companies, right, that have been here for a very long time. And some of these companies were they didn't embrace technology as much as the newer companies. And so I remember when we were in New Orleans, I think it was 5 years ago, I remember there was a lot of operators that was doing the manual pricing still. Now, there was not a lot of people that still do that, but now they kind of leveled up and they're now using a pricing tool, but they're using it in a very basic way where they're setting a base price and then they go in twice a week to look at, some gaps in the occupancy for the next couple of weeks and kind of manually making some adjustments, but pretty much like a little bit of a set it and forget it approach. So that's one thing I thought was really interesting that I noticed.
What's up, guys? Eric here. And before we dive into this episode, I want to introduce you to our podcast sponsor, Freewyld Foundry. Freewyld Foundry is a revenue management service, white glove, high touch service for the top 1% short-term rental operators. We're currently managing over $60 million in bookings, 1,700 listings worldwide, and we are growing very, very quickly. Our RPM program is a done-for-you revenue management service, and I want to invite you, if you are a short-term rental operator that's doing $1 million or more, or maybe about 15 listings or more, head over to freewildfoundry.com and apply for one of our free revenue audit reports. This is where Jasper and the team will actually take a look at your pricing strategy, audit all of your Airbnb listings, and let you know if you're leaving money on the table. So this is free. To everyone who's listening to this podcast, head over to freewildfoundry.com and apply for your free audit report. A topic that I noticed that everyone was talking about, a lot of the vendors that were there had AI tools and all this stuff. AI is definitely growing. So like to your point, Jasper, like the industry has gone from like this old vacation rental manager type of model to the new age short-term rental operator, right? We were meeting a ton of young short-term rental companies that had a ton of listings doing millions of dollars in revenue. And AI was a huge topic there. Everybody's talking about it. There's multiple panels on it, but also it seemed like nobody really understands AI and no one really understands how to implement it into their business. So we're seeing AI revenue management tools. We're seeing AI property management, PMS softwares and all these things. So I'm really interested to watch over the next few years what AI companies really rise to the top and then what solutions actually work, because the industry shifted, but it seems like everybody wants AI, but no one really understands how to implement it into their business. So I don't know if you guys noticed that as well.
Yeah, I feel like we had a few conversations with other supplier, vendor, B2B types of businesses. And they're like, oh, what are you guys doing? And you're like, well, we offer a service. It's hands-on revenue management. And we'd get kind of like the side eye of like, really? Isn't that kind of like
with a real human being?
Right. But the truth is, at least from what we've seen, AI isn't there yet. The tools aren't there yet. We don't have this fully hands-off solution yet for a lot of these things, whether we're talking about guest messaging or I'm trying to think what some of the other AI tools were, like just the hospitality side. And then, like you mentioned, there was some revenue management types of tools as well. So Jasper, with the revenue that we found, it was interesting. Miles was debriefing. I think it was our last team dinner. And he's like, what's really weird is what is normal and expected for us, like kind of the baseline revenue management that we do for our clients, isn't that normal for the ones that we looked at. So what were some of those obvious misses that we kept seeing again and again?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. The first thing is, like I mentioned before, it's like thinking that you just set up a pricing tool and that it's going to automatically maximize your revenue and that you don't have to look at it as much. So, at Freewyld, we look at every single booking. And this is also something that we asked when we did the workshop, which I'm sure we'll talk about the workshop in a minute. But, we asked like, hey, how often are you looking at your pricing tool? Right. And for us, the standard is we look at every single booking. And the reason for that is that every single booking has information about how you're priced, right? Because if somebody makes a booking, that means there's a human being that looked at a whole range of properties and they decided to book with you. So that gives you information that's relevant for your pricing. So missing even one booking can cost money because, for example, let's say somebody books for next year, September, right? On a random Tuesday, Wednesday, or something like that, where you wouldn't necessarily expect somebody to book that far in advance. That probably means there's something going on in your market, right? And the pricing tools may have not picked up on that. That's reason to investigate, right? It's like, okay, is there an event? If not, like, are we priced like very competitively for those dates? Because why did they choose us versus all the other properties that are still available a year in advance? So if you miss that booking, you're missing information. And so the more information that you miss, the lower your revenue is going to be, because this is an information game. This is not mathematics where it's like 1 + 1 is 2, no matter what. Right? No, it's like we need as much information as possible to make the best decisions as possible. So if you're ignoring a lot of information that's coming in to potentially help you, then you're not going to do as good of a job as a revenue manager. But I think that sounded kind of shocking to a lot of operators. It's like, I have to look at every single booking. I have 100 properties. I can't look at every booking. I'm like, well, you got to do it. Otherwise, you have to hire somebody like us, to do it for you.
That's right.
Exactly. So we got to speak. Well, I wasn't on stage. Jasper and Eric were on stage and completely rocked it. Eric, what was the experience like leading up to the skills lab that we taught? And what was the actual experience being on stage?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think we all shared is like just blown away on how big the room was. I was expecting that we were going to be on a small panel, a small room, but I don't know. I think the room would have fit 200 people. I think we had roughly, I don't know, what would you guys say, 100 in the beginning, 80 to 100 people, maybe more. I don't know. Jasper, you're the number guy, so you probably know better than us. But it was awesome. Like, it was just really cool to have a space, have a place where we can do our thing and share with the community and the industry what we do and where we thrive. So it was a lot of fun. It felt really good to be on stage again with Jasper. We've done so many freaking masterminds together and webinars, all of that. So it just felt really good to be up there. I thought that it's so funny because it's like, as we hold ourselves to high standards with everything we do. So as we're going through and I'm questioning myself, I'm like, are we driving value? Are people into this, all of this? And, we had people coming up to us afterwards and saying like, that was the best revenue management numbers focused session I've ever sat through. It was a 10 out of 10. I was like, all right, that's awesome. Because we've just been constantly asking the question, like, how do we make revenue management fun and exciting for this industry? Because up until now, it's been very, very just boring and numbers. And it's just like really, I don't know, it's not as exciting as the hospitality side or the design side or social media side, right? So a lot of people, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I thought it was awesome. It was a great opportunity. So shout out to Michelle for hooking us up and getting us into VRMA. She was an awesome human being. Great to, meet her in person. Yeah, we wouldn't have been on that stage if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, she was a gem. She saw one of Eric's LinkedIn posts where we were talking about revenue management. She reached out and we set up this amazing workshop. The cool thing about the Skills Lab, it was brand new for them, a brand new format. It was actually 90 minutes long. So it gave us time to really dig into the topic and also to do some live audits and, participation from the audience and take a look at their portfolios. So it was a really interesting format. I'm so happy that we got the opportunity to do that. Jasper, how about you? What was your experience teaching pricing power?
Yeah, well, first of all, the numbers are very exciting, Eric. I don't know what you're talking about. But so I, when I first heard that we were doing 90 minutes, I was like, ooh, that's a lot of pressure, coming up with content for like 90 minutes, like an hour and a half. And then as Eric mentioned, like we walk into the room and it's like giant room, kind of a little intimidating at first when you walk in. But yeah, I think the reason that people really enjoyed this workshop is that like Eric and I have been going to a lot of conferences. We went to DARM, been to VRMA multiple times, IMAN, and I've been attending so many revenue management talks at these events, but then also webinars and stuff. And the one thing that always frustrates me when I go to revenue management trainings, it's very rare that there's like a real actionable insight and takeaways. There's a lot of talk around different concepts and like, little pieces of advice here and there, but no one really comes with like a real strategy of like, okay, this is how you do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. These are the KPIs to look at. This is how you make decisions. And I think it's because there's so many factors in revenue management that people are always saying that it depends on the situation. People are afraid to give some straight up like strategies, I think. And so, my goal for this workshop was, okay, I'm going to go against that. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to actually give people a straight up strategy. And I know that there's going to be exceptions, and I know that there's nuances, and I know that if this, then that, yada, yada, yada. But for the most part, if you take these guidelines and implement them right away, we gave people worksheets and we gave them a little quiz and we gave them a lot of resources so they could actually implement it. And I tried to keep it as simple as possible, as sexy as possible. And, yeah, I think people really enjoy that. The feedback that I got from a lot of operators that they loved that they now had something like tangible that they could start doing. Because I think a lot of operators, the reason that they don't look at price hubs as much is because, or other pricing tools, is because they open it up and there's like thousands of numbers, there's graphs, there's all this stuff. They get overwhelmed. They don't really know what to look at, where to start. And so then they just kind of ignore it. But now they have a real plan of like, okay, every day I'm going to look at this. And then every week I'm going to look at this. And if this number is above that number, then I probably need to lower my prices a little bit. So they now have a guideline, like a step-by-step process that they can follow. I think that's very helpful because you have some type of north star to follow in the chaos of all the numbers and the graphs.
Yeah. No, I thought you did a great job making it tangible, right? So breaking down and paying attention to the exact KPIs that everyone needs to pay attention to. And yeah, it was something that they were able to walk away. And that was the goal behind the skills lab, right? It wasn't for us to speak at them. It was to teach them and help them implement into their business. And I thought we did a great job. So excited to do it again. I don't know if we're going to turn this into webinars or live events for ourselves, but I know we all left that saying like, all right, we need to do more trainings to this industry. 1, it's a lot of fun. And 2, people get a lot of value from it. So it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's get on more stages, virtual or otherwise.
Yeah.
Heck, yes, that was one of the main takeaways.
Okay, I had a quick. I'm going to jump in real quick. I'm really curious. I want to toss it towards you because this is your first VRMA. What was this experience like for you? Because you've been in the industry now for, I don't know, it seems like 10 years, but how long have we been working together? 2 years?
No more 2 years. Yeah. Something of that nature. I think I just noticed that we passed the anniversary date of starting the Freewyld Foundry Instagram account. It was like the day before Halloween last year. So this is still brand new. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. So I'm curious because, you were involved in every aspect of this and you met a lot of people there as well. You were working the room, talking to everybody. What was this VRMA experience like for you? What did you learn about the experience, the event, the industry, the whole thing?
It was such a great experience. For one, I was looking forward to it, but it was also like my single source of anxiety leading up to the event because I was pulling together the details of the booth and all the print materials and had to figure out what I was going to wear and all that fun stuff.
You crushed it.
Thank you. So lots of anxiety going up to it. It's a massive event. I mean, I don't know what the final attendee number was, but approaching 2,000 people, I believe, right around there. So just huge room, huge expo floor, tons of different sessions that people could go to. But the thing that struck me the most is how small the industry felt. And I think part of this is because you guys have been building relationships for a long time. So there's just people coming up and thanking you for the impact that they've had or that you've had on their lives. But every single conversation that I had, people were warm, kind, humble with very few exceptions. And that was not my experience in more like general entrepreneur or marketing conferences that I've been to in the past. So I was blown away just at the heart of this industry and being able to see it at VRMA. It honestly felt like a small community, even though it was such a massive event. And it was super cool.
Yeah, the industry is amazing. It's again, like it's maturing, but also the community that we built is freaking amazing. And like you really, I don't know, I feel like we're in the hospitality industry, right? So you have to have that part of your heart, right? So it's filled with incredible human beings, but then also amazing companies that are doing amazing things in the world, right? I remember going to so many different marketing events and it's like just filled with ego. And, you know, it's just like, you don't really know what's real and what's not real. And it's like when you're at VRMA, you really see who the major players are and the impact that they're having in the business. And tell you this as well, I won't get into detail on why this inspired me to talk about this, but this industry is very, very small. Right. So real players that are, I'm not talking about size, just people that are real entrepreneurs that are doing real things in the industry, from operators to investors to the vendors, all of that. Word gets around on if you're a good human doing good things in this industry or if you're taking advantage of this industry in some way. So yeah, I just want to say that. There's a lot of stories that are out there. I was like, really, this is interesting. So it bubbles up and it's great. And then you start seeing like the great human beings that show up all the time and have been part of this industry for a long time. And it just felt great seeing everybody.
Yep. So as vendors, we didn't actually attend very many of the sessions. I popped into like 2 of the marketing ones that were quite good. But I'm curious for both of you, what were some standout conversations that you had during VRMA?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
You know, my conversations were pretty much all around revenue management. You know, I think some of the things I mentioned before is just a lot of people are using a pricing tool now. It's very rare to find somebody who's not using a pricing tool. I also think that people are definitely more interested in revenue management as a topic to talk about than 5 years ago, 4 years ago when we used to go. I think that people are starting to realize that revenue management is a real part of the business where you need somebody to specialize and focus on it versus just a founder taking an hour a week to, make some last minute pricing changes and then waiting for next week until to look at it again. I think that was one thing. And another thing that came up a lot was, like you guys mentioned, AI. I had several operators that I talked to who I asked them, what's the number one thing you want to get out of the conference? And they were saying like, I want to understand how to implement AI in my business.
I wonder if they actually walked away with that knowledge, because it seems it seems like a lot of people are talking about it, but man, it's freaking confusing for everybody. And it's not just in our industry, it's every entrepreneur that I know, even the ones that are investing in AI and building AI, they still don't really understand how to really implement it and grow it in their businesses. So it's interesting. And yeah, I mean, I would say one company that really stood out to me that just, I love the founder, I love the brand, I love what they're doing is Boom. The founder is absolutely incredible. It seems like every time I see that guy, he pulls me aside and like mentors me on business right away. And he's just like such an incredible human being. They just recently raised like $13 million for their Series A, which is freaking awesome. They had an awesome booth that was there, but those guys are definitely leading the way in AI. So I highly recommend operators check them out. But, I would say along with the AI talk, I'm noticing that revenue management is becoming a hot topic for every operator because they realize that you just can't compete anymore with just pricing tool. You need somebody in that seat owning it. And then also, what would you call it? I guess like viral marketing is becoming another hot topic. Every operator I was talking to were asking those questions, like how do we create content? How do we get more direct bookings? How do we create something that's going to really grow? So like the guys like Dustin, what's his last name? Dustin
Baker.
Dustin Baker. Yeah. I think his company's called New Gem Media or
Hidden Gem Media.
Thank you, Kaye.
Yeah.
Like he was showing me what he's doing with some of the operators and it's freaking unbelievable. And Maddie, what she's doing with her marketing crew. I forget what she calls them. The
content army.
Yeah, content army. That's freaking awesome. So I just see I see all these things really moving the industry forward. Like that's the new trend is like figuring out AI, not to replace, but to enhance and optimize what we're doing and what the teams are doing. 2 is real operators are moving into revenue management and they're trying to find solutions and they're recognizing that just AI or just consulting is not necessarily what they need. They either have to grow themselves, hire, or outsource. And then content, creating unique brands and scaling on social media is a really hot topic right now. So I see that as like the trends moving forward.
It was so interesting. I went to, I don't know if this was a new format or if they've done this before, but they had kind of like a peer-to-peer session. So I went to the marketing and sales session, and they had different topics at different tables that you could sit at and talk about that topic. So you could talk about SEO, you could talk about guest experience, brand differentiation. I sat at the social media table for the first one, and then at the content and storytelling table for the second one. And maybe this is like a bad selection bias, but out of the 10 people that were sat around that table talking about social media, we were the only ones, aside from Maddie, who was facilitating the table, that was putting real effort into social media. Everybody wanted to, but nobody really has dipped their toe in or operationalized this, figured this out, really invested into it. So there's still a wide open opportunity for people to get into it, even if you haven't started building social and investing in content yet. Most people haven't. So you're right where you need to be. And now's the time to take that opportunity.
I agree. And think of like when we first launched Freewyld, and over the last year of us trying to grow that account for the cabins, how difficult and frustrating it was of like us creating all this content, and then we get like 3 views and we're like, what is happening? This is amazing content. Why isn't anybody seeing it? And then you get 1 or 2 that pop off and it's like, okay, awesome, it's working. And then like the next 30 don't go anywhere, right? It's a very frustrating model to figure out. And even now, like we're still creating amazing content, but our engagement has been dropping the last like couple of months. We're like, okay, well, we're going to figure out why that is. And so I think a lot of people, a lot of hosts and just business owners in general, they stray away from social media because it's so challenging to grow. You have to continue to create authentic content that looks beautiful, and you have to have beautiful properties, and you have to tell stories, and you have to do all that. You can't just have a regular cookie cutter short-term rental that people are just going to skip over. You have to stop the scroll, and it takes a long time to build that, right? So like, I think we're just about almost 25,000 followers, right? On Freewyld.
Just shy.
Freaking awesome, right? But it's like, think of all the work and the time and frustration and the uncertainty that led us there, and we're still trying to figure it out. The reason why I share that is like, if you do have an awesome brand, and the operators that do have awesome brands and awesome properties, it's just like revenue management. It's something that you have to stay on top of every single day. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty, and it's something that you have to grow continually, but you have to decide, are you going to be the expert in your team driving it? Or are you going to hire the expert in the team to drive it, or are you going to outsource it, right? And like finding guys like Dustin and other services that are out there. But yeah, if you can do that, stick with it for at least a year. And at the end of the year, you decide like, all right, was that worth the effort or not? And for us, it's definitely worth the effort, right? But there was a lot of uncertainty there. So
yeah, there's lots of parallels between revenue management and marketing. Another one, like I think with both functions or both strategic functions, it's tempting to be like, oh, I'm just going to get a VA in here. Yeah. I'm just going to get a marketing VA, a revenue management VA. We talked to several clients at the booth who had somebody, quote unquote, that was doing their revenue management. But when we looked, it wasn't sufficient. So yeah, it's interesting.
That's an interesting topic that I'd love to say a few things about, because, you know, I understand why people when you hire a revenue manager, obviously you're going to look at the cost. But to hire a revenue manager, you have to think a little bit more about the impact than when you're hiring somebody to do work that's not directly going to affect revenue. So if we hire somebody to implement some operational stuff, then, you know, we obviously, if somebody is going to charge us $5K and the other one's trying to charge us like $25K, we're probably going to go with the person that charges $5K, because the other person has to be like really five times as valuable for implementing some operational tasks. It's hard to justify that. But with revenue management, that's completely different, right? Because if you think about it, you know, we're onboarding a new client now who does $5 million a year, right? They are doing master leasing. That means every dollar revenue that we increase goes straight to their pocket. We can raise their revenue by just 10%, which is conservative for us based on what we saw. That's $500,000. So that's additional money. So if, let's say that they would be paying us $400,000, which they're not, but just as an example, they would still be making $100,000 more than before they hired us. Now, if they hire somebody, a virtual assistant for like, $2,000 a month, yeah, it's only costing them $24 a year. But if that person doesn't increase their revenue, or even worse, if their revenue goes down after you hire that person, then the real cost is the $500,000 that they're missing out on. It's not the $24K that they're paying, right? So with a revenue manager, it's not that so much about like, what does that person cost? It's more like, how are they going to affect our revenue? That's the more important question that you have to ask.
100%. We talking to another potential client now we're talking to them today to make a decision to join RPM, but they're in the same position. They're growing like crazy. They have a ton of properties. They have a pricing tool and they have a consulting company that they meet with to help them make decisions. And with revenue management, and I asked him why they went with them originally. And he said, because it was the cheapest option. That was the only response. And we looked at their numbers, and I think there was a huge lift, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of lift, even with our fee included into that. They were adding a ton of money to their platform. So to your point, Jasper, like that's exactly what I explained to him. Like when it comes to the revenue management side, when it comes to marketing, you don't want to go for the cheapest route. You want to go for the individuals or the companies or services that, one, have a track record, and two, that would truly have the biggest impact on your portfolios, right? And we see it a lot with marketing as well, where people just hire cheap VAs to. We were talking to somebody else completely different that I was showing them our Instagram, Freewyld Instagram. And they're like, how do you do this? Like, this looks amazing. I've been investing in this marketing VA for the last few months and we're just not getting anywhere. And I look at their stuff and it's just not good. It's just not good. And I'm like, hey, you got to move away you got to invest into this stuff. You got to be patient for the ROI of it. Right. It's not a immediate pop. Revenue management, a little bit different. We see, most of our clients, we see really quick results within 30, 60, 90 days. Marketing, you could see some results, but there's a compounding effect there. So yeah, those are all major learning lessons just as operators too, business operators of, know where to invest into the best people and services and know where to be patient in the results as well.
Yeah. There's a reason why we've been calling it like hidden revenue or invisible revenue in our marketing, because it's so true. Like you don't know what you're missing out on until you have an expert who can see it, point it out to you. So little plug, if you missed us at VRMA, if you weren't there and didn't have the opportunity to get that turbo revenue report, we still do the full revenue report process. So if you're over $1 million in annual bookings, just head over to freewildfoundry.com/report, and we're happy to take a look and like lift the curtain up and show you exactly what you could be making if you had this dialed in. Any final closing remarks on VRMA? We did book our booth for Nashville in 2026. So we're going back. We liked it enough, good enough ROI and conversations and all that to go back and make that decision early. Anything else that you want to close out with?
Yeah, much better location next year as well. So
yes.
in multiple different reasons. One, being down in Nashville is going to be freaking awesome. What I realize is that the Freewyld team is not a Vegas crew at all. Maybe Miles a tiny bit, but even him, it's not. Yeah, we want nature. We want out of casinos. But yeah, I think our booth number is 1143 for next year. So it's going to be right across from the wellness center that they're launching next year. So yeah, super excited. No, just, I love this industry. This is awesome. I love this brand and the team that we're working on. I think I shared it with you guys at one of our team dinners that this VRMA really made me realize that we have a real brand and a real team that's having real impact on people's lives and businesses. And it's freaking awesome. So I'm leaving this VRMA just inspired to lead at a different level and take this to a different level with you guys. And just like help more and more operators. We have multiple, operators that and hosts come up to us and share with us that, our services, our content have changed their lives. And I would never thought that revenue management or talking about short-term rentals and our experience of growing our businesses, we're going to impact people that way. So it's really freaking awesome to do that. I just want to continue to do that and bring, just a positive impact to this industry. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, 100%. One of the other takeaways for me was how good it is to meet people in person. Like you can spend 100 hours on Zoom with somebody and you still don't really get a real feel for who this person is. And so being able to not only meet two of our team members, Miles and Mariano, in real life, but also meeting some of our revenue management clients, meeting some people that have gone through our courses. It's just so fun to meet people in real life. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, same takeaway. I got to meet one of our clients, our longest term client, and I just love him and his wife. I want to be best friends with them. So that was a blast. And like you said, this was the first time that we got Mariano and Miles in person. We've done like offsites, the three of us, but we are growing the team and getting to actually like meet these humans and hear about their lives and their families and their babies and all of those things just is incredible. So so grateful to both of you for bringing us all together. And I'm just super happy with how VRMA ended up.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. Awesome. Well, this is cool too. We should do another triple podcast in the future. So hopefully people found it valuable. But thanks, Kaye. Thanks, Jasper. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll
Thanks,
see you
bye.
next time.
Get paid for your pad.